My name is David Todd III, and I'm his son.
My name is Irma Todd, and Dr. David B. Todd Jr. was my brother.
And I am Vicki Todd Stubbs, and I'm the oldest. I'm his daughter.
Well, I have often said the D.B. Todd that people know of, I never knew. And he was always my father. So, you know, I did not realize the impact or anything that he put on the city or anything until after his passing. When the morning of, I heard on the news that he had passed, and I was asking my mom, why is it newsworthy? But he was always my dad. So,
because that's the same Peter. He was dad. He was daddy. He wasn't. It's like when we came home from the church camp. You remember that when we went to church camp and we came home and all those cars and reporters were outside and we were like, what's going on? I mean, you know, he's.
Well, as Dr. Todd's sister, I know him from a different perspective. I, of course, knew their dad before they were born. I know him as one of the greatest brothers in the world. Dr. Todd was a wonderful brother. Nobody could have had a better brother. When I was growing up as a little girl, I remember he was always very, very good with his hands. And that it's so fitting that he would have become a cardiovascular surgeon. Because I remember when I was about 5 years old, he worked in a shoe shop. And he made, from scratch, made me a pair of sandals. He made me a pair of brown leather sandals.
I remember you telling
He
me.
made them from the leather and the straps up, and they looked exactly like a pair of shoes that you could buy today in any shoe store. So he has always been great. He was always there to help me as a sister. I remember when he would come home from Morehouse College, and I was very young, and he would, you know how you put children on around your neck, you know, and have the little feet dangling, walking around. And he would carry me from the train to the car. And I was always excited when my big brother was at home. And as the years passed, my mother was very, very ill, and of course passed away when I was 13 years old. But my brother and his wife, Lorraine, their parents, were always there for me. And I know at age 12, their parents were married in 1956, and they drove home in a 1956 Oldsmobile, which was a beautiful, nice car. And believe it or not, I was 12 years old, and he told me that I had to learn to drive. So he taught me to drive at 12 years of age. That was my big brother. And he was always there for me. When I went to college, I stayed with the family for 2 years. And one of my assignments in college was to trace a piece of bread through the body, through the human body. And I was confused and didn't really know what to do. And of course, he was right there to just do it for me. And he was very, very smart. And it didn't take him long. It took him about 5 minutes to trace that piece of blood through the body. And he was always kind and loving and gracious and did everything with a smile. He was a very warm, kind, and caring person.
Going to that piece of bread, what was his status then? Was he in school? Was he practicing, or?
He was doing a residency, I believe, at Meharry
Okay.
at the time. That was my my freshman year at Tennessee State. And I believe he was doing a residency at that time. I know at the end of my sophomore year, he received a fellowship to work on his PhD in medicine at the University of Minnesota. So the family moved from Nashville to Minneapolis for him to complete his doctorate
Okay.
in medicine.
Okay.
So I believe he was a resident at that particular time.
Because I think that also included Uncle Marvin, Daddy's brother.
I saw his obituary as well. Okay.
So the whole family moved to Minneapolis.
Let me ask a question, if I may. You mentioned him being a resident at Meharry, and of course we can trace, you could trace for us what his medical training was, etc. I recently read an article that moved me to tears, and it was entitled, what was it?
Have you met?
Have you met Dr.
Dr.
Todd? And it was written by one of our elders in our church, Elder Earl Moore. Would you tell me about, you just met him?
I did, and my aunt met him earlier on. I think he was about 91.
Yes, I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Elder Moore about 2 years ago. I met him at Hillcrest. My neighbor is a member of Hillcrest, and I just remembered that Earl Moore had written the article, Have You Met Dr. Todd? So I just asked her one day if she knew of Elder Moore, because I knew she was a Seventh-day Adventist. And she said, yes. She said, I see him at church all the time. So I said, well, the next time he's there, call me, and whatever I'm doing, I'll make a point to go there. So she did, and I stopped whatever I was doing when she called and went over there and met Elder Moore. He was in good health at the time. We stood there and had a wonderful conversation. We took pictures. I have pictures that I took with Elder Moore, and we talked about the magazine. I took a picture with him, and we were standing there holding the magazine. So I was really happy to be able to have that experience with him while he was still in very good health.
So Vicki, you visited him recently, I believe.
And of course he was not in good health, but that was a very exciting time to be able to meet him, because I have been trying to meet Elder Moore for a while, because that was a very wonderful article, very well written,
and he loved your dad.
Oh, when I walked in and when he finally woke up, I said, Dr. Todd, and as soon as I said Dr. Todd, he just lit up and he just started smiling, and I'm like, okay, you remember my dad, you know, because he just started smiling from ear to ear. I mean, he was just,
And I want to say too, that Vicki just mentioned that the article is well written. That's an extremely well written article.
Yes,
and
it
as
is.
she said, he did really love and appreciate the care that Dr. Todd had given to him, and it all shows. If you read the article, it comes through
Very
on the
clearly.
written page.
Yes.
It is, out of all the research I've done on him, it is the most moving piece of literature about your dad. I mean, I cried like a baby. I said, it was so intimate, and he literally saved his life. He saved Elder Moore's life.
Yes.
And he
Many years
saved
ago.
many other lives.
He did.
Yes.
There's another article that I can remember that was printed in the newspaper where he did the open heart surgery on a little boy, I believe, who was 5 years old. And I was sitting in church about oh, I think it's been about 2 years ago now. And I was talking with one of my church members that I was sitting next to, and she was telling me that Dr. Todd had saved her sister's life, said that he had performed heart surgery on her. And so I said, well, how is your sister, or whatever happened to your sister? And she said, oh, she's fine. She's sitting right back there. sitting in the church. So and from time to time, I hear people talk about him. Every now and then, I'll meet somebody in the grocery store, or see somebody in the shopping mall, or somebody who has, they have so many wonderful things to say about Dr. Todd. And I know, as his sister, that they are all true.
Yes.
He was a wonderful man.
He spent a significant block of time in Riverside Hospital,
Yes.
treating patients, and it should be said is that's where your father's life ended, was in Riverside Hospital.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? Or whatever you were going to say.
No, I was just agreeing with you, yeah, and unfortunately and regrettably, I remember that night, and I guess what's really really remembering is the telephone calls coming to the house, looking for my dad, because when emergencies, and this is back in the day when doctors had pagers, and the pagers were voice pagers, and they would call the house looking for my dad because they had an emergency at Riverside Hospital. And telling him to get over to Riverside Hospital, where is Dr. Todd? And unfortunately, he was the patient.
Well, I remember that night very well also, because David the Third and I were the last people to view him just before they took him out. When they were unable to resuscitate him, and when he was finally pronounced dead, then David III here and I were the two people who went in to visit with him at that particular time. Dr. Todd was a person who loved his work. He loved taking care of his patients, and I've had several of them to tell me that when they went to his office, if they couldn't pay for the service, he would do it anyway.
He would do it anyway.
And he some people did not really know sometimes when they would meet him that he was a physician, and he didn't buy, he would just smile and go about doing his work. And he was a very, very smart man, but a lot of people really didn't know that. He received all kinds of accolades for being, his intelligence and all, but I mean, he just took it with a smile as if it were nothing. He graduated valedictorian of his class from high school. When he went to Morehouse College, he won all of the top honors and graduated first in his class there. When he attended Meharry, he received all of the top honors there. And when he was in Minneapolis, when he had the fellowship to get his PhD in medicine, the oral examination was supposed to take 2 hours, but his was 20 minutes.
I read that.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
And their mother received a letter from Dr. Lily High indicating that he was answering questions as if they were coming out of a computer. So, and they asked him, I was told that they asked him one question that they figured that he really didn't know very much about, so they thought they were going to stomp him. So they asked this particular question, and he just poured it out as if it were coming out of a computer, so they didn't have anything else to say. They didn't have anything else to say, so they concluded the examination.
It was a disease that they had given generic name. Daddy came out with the real name, all of the drugs, all the generic drugs, everything that, people, they had to go back and look up to see if this was all true, that he was just rubbing it off like it was.
And what you're talking about is so rare. It's rare today for a guy to have an MD and a PhD. So back then, it had to be super rare.
Yeah.
An MD and a PhD. Earlier you guys talked about you knew your father as just a father. When did it click to you, that other piece, that medical piece, that community piece? And how old were you when that happened? And what was it that triggered in your mind that he was more than just your father? He was the father to a community.
Yeah.
It's like my brother said, it was after he passed. We had a dog that my brother had gotten from my parents. Her name was Lady Gale. And I think her story will kind of say it all, because Daddy would come home late at night and he would be gone all day long. He would get up and he'll leave out 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it would be midnight or later when he would get back home. So Lady Gale, after Daddy passed, actually had to go to the hospital for depression, because and we didn't realize that the dog had connected with my dad that much, but she did, and all the animals did. And that just in itself just proved that he was just more of a family. He was just family oriented. He just, and when we looked at Lady Gale, we were like, every time she would sleep on his side of the bed. When the back door opened, she wouldn't even touch the ground, trying to get to the back door, trying to see if that was him coming in the door. So it didn't. And it was one time when, the four of us, we tell the story of my daddy, the beginning of my daddy's career.
Now, Vicki is saying the four of us, so
The children.
The kids.
Children, So these are two, but they have two other sisters, Cynthia Quarles and Kathy Burton, who live in Atlanta. If they had been here, they would be right here with us as well.
Yeah.
But I was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, when Daddy was doing his residency. One of them, the first one. My brother was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
And on that note, Cynthia was born here in Nashville, Tennessee, and Kathy was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So all four of them were born in a different state. All four of them were in a different state.
Okay.
He was born during the time Daddy was in the Army. Cynthia, when he was in the Army, if I remember the story right, Daddy was doing surgery, and he was doing something unusual, and so the guy was like, you can't stay here, you need to go back and study under Dr. Walker. So that's how my sister was born here, because Daddy
Matthew Walker, you said.
Right, Matthew Walker. And Matthew Walker, also a family guy, he told us right away when we came back the second time to Nashville, he said, you can just call us Granddaddy. Because he said, I'm now your granddaddy. And we was like, okay. Then my baby sister was born during the time that Daddy went up there and passed the test in 20 minutes.
Well, I also like to say something about this, and I learned this later. You heard the name Lola High.
C. Walter, Lily High.
Yeah, Dr. Walter C. Lola High.
Okay.
And what's significant of that is he was considered to be the grandfather of cardiovascular surgeon. He was the best one of the best in the world at the time. So anytime we deal with cardiovascular surgery, and that's the guy that trained my dad. Wow. So, and then, and also on your note too, back in the 60s and 70s, well, 60s, 50s, the only two law schools, med schools that a black person can go, African American, was Howard and Meharry.
Yes.
And the only thing that you can get done at that time was a family, the doctorate general practitioner.
Right.
And it was on, and so how rare it was for the PhD.
PhD, MD,
Well,
unheard of.
Yeah, it was rare, but even rarer for a black
Yes.
or African American.
Right.
So he was like one of
Yeah.
island by himself.
Yeah.
If I could say, if you will direct your vision this way, and
Okay.
we want to see your eyes, your
No,
blue
no,
eyes.
no. I definitely understand that. I definitely understand that.
And to hitchhike on your comment about Meharry and Howard, at one time, back in the early 70s, I heard a statistic, and I'm pretty sure it's close to being true. At that time, 80% of all the black doctors in the world went to Meharry or Howard.
That's true.
I
Yeah,
believe that's correct.
80% of all the black doctors in the world matriculated on Meharry or Howard.
Right.
And Meharry had the biggest,
Biggest.
Had the bulk of
biggest,
those.
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
And then,
phenomenal history.
so,
Well, we talked about family life. I know you not too recently, to your mother transition. What was life like with her? I know she must have been one heck of a mom, a team they must have been.
well, I must have to say that I have to say I was very fortunate and blessed to have a mother and a father all my life under one roof, and that they were married. So, and that's a life that I know of, and you know, and once again, I did not know, and you can ask any of my friends that, you know, neighbors around, I doubt that they really knew, maybe their parents, but they knew the contributions my dad put in, because everybody, you know, it was just like, if I met your dad, you know, he'd be like, you know, that was your dad, you know, and, you know, if I got in trouble, you know, I was, you know, he took care of business. Yeah, so, you know, I mean, it was nothing special in terms of our family life. You know, I had chores, just, you know, my chores, you know, we had cutting grass, you know. I mean, it was nothing out of the ordinary or anything like that, you know. And when I go to my friend's house, or they can't come over, everybody knew about cutting grass.
Yeah. And the bulk of your childhood, in terms of growing up, what part of Nashville were you in? Did you move around, or did you? What was your favorite place?
When we came back, Bordeaux.
Okay.
When we came back to Nashville, it was Bordeaux.
Okay.
We lived on 16th when he was here.
Cynthia was the baby.
When Cynthia was the baby, and during that time we were on 16th, and I guess Irma could probably tell you more than I can. But there was someone had broken the house, and Daddy had parked the car up by Meharry, and he walked home. And so the guy didn't know that he was in the house. So when he sat up, of course the guy ran out of the house. But some months later, I guess, the guy got hurt. He was caught and he got hurt. And so he had to go to Meharry. And who was there?
Oh my!
But my dad smiled and he took care of it.
Did your father know?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the man knew it was my dad. And he didn't think that my dad was going to take care of him. But my daddy took very good care of him.
Oh my!
Yeah.
My.
Yes, Daddy took very good care of him.
I want
Yes.
to get back and say something about their mother that you mentioned, who passed away in 2015, not very long ago. Their mother was an excellent companion with their father. They got married, as I said earlier, in 1956, and when they drove home to Birmingham, my mother was very ill. She was bedridden, and their mother helped to take care of her while she was there. And when my mother passed away, then their mother took me in as her sister. And we were so close that many people thought that I was her sister rather than their father's sister.
Wow.
And for a long time, I thought she was my sister. Because she was always around. And when we were living in St. Louis, in Fort Leonard Wood, Irma came home on the train, and I guess he had to let Irma tell how my hair looked.
She had 50 bows all over her head. Her mother was in the hospital with him, and her father came to meet me. And here's this little girl with all these little bows all over her head. I'm thinking, what in the world?
I love it. I know, but you know what? Vicky has a beautiful cuteness about her right now. I can just see her with all of these bows.
And as she said, I was around them all of the time. I want to get back to being here in Nashville when she mentioned that Cynthia was the baby. Now, during that summer, that was the summer of my sophomore year in school, freshman year in school. And I took care of the 3 of them. There were just 3, of course. Her baby sister wasn't born yet. So I took care of the 3 of them, and Cynthia was like my little baby. And I really don't know how I maneuvered with all 3 of them, but we did. And I took the places all of the time. I remember taking them to see the Jackson 5.
I was about to say that, one of the historic concerts in Nashville. At the time we did not know it, but I was in the Omni Hotel, and they had a mural. And it says in December 1970, the Jackson 5 showing where they were in town performing them. And the person that took us was
They were my children. I had one of my favorite pictures.
5. Can you imagine?
Way cool.
Yeah.
I asked Cynthia if she remembered it because she was the youngest child there. And she said, oh yeah, I was there, I went. And one of my favorite pictures, and I kept it in my wallet forever, one of my favorite pictures is a picture that I have of myself and my 3 little children. I have David, I have Vicky, they were still. David's here, Vicky is first, David's in the middle, and here's Cynthia down here, and I have my little children standing there.
I would tell you, that was a pretty cool concert. I was, like I said, I was in the Omni, we were having lunch or something. I was with my wife, and then I saw I took a picture of it. I even called Earl. I said, Earl, they have this on the wall. Because you don't know. When you go to a concert, even now, if you go to a concert, you don't think like 40 years from now it's going to be like a memorable concert.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool. That's cool stuff.
Mama also wanted us to always be have respect, and she always wanted us to behave, and she always wanted everything when we were all together to be just right. So my brother was 2, and we were at Granddaddy's house, and Granddaddy had just said the prayer. My grandfather was the pastor of Bethel Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. So that's to say how long the prayer was. So after the prayer, everybody started eating. Everybody but David. And Granddaddy looked over at David and said, what's the matter, Watch? And he said, ain't enough to get started. Because Mama had put this little cute little bed in there. Granddaddy said, you don't see that.
Oh,
You
my
know,
goodness.
and Dawn said, y'all, and I guess a lot of people always want to know, like, one of his passions. And believe it or not, he had a passion for boating.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we get to
Yeah.
the biggest passion.
Yeah,
Is-
that's, you know, like, that was his outlet. We had, he had a houseboat, and like clockwork, week in, week out, he was out there.
I thought it was amazing the day that my dad told David to come on, go upstairs, because you could steer the boat from 2 levels. And so he told David go upstairs. You remember that, David? To
steer the
learn
boat.
how to drive.
Yeah, you know, so.
That's funny, I was just about to ask you, each one of you, which was your most memorable thought that you have now of your experience with your father and your brother? And it sounds like on steering that boat, that would have been pretty exciting for me.
Yes.
Or is there another memory or something that's your most memorable?
California.
This will be our concluding portion of it. You've given us enough here today to write a book. And it's been absolutely beautiful. I feel like Oprah. I'm tearing back here trying not to. But to close, what would be your statement from each one of you?
I think mine was the last big family trip that we had, going to California. It took us 4 days to get there, 5 days to get back, and we spent a week. And I think we traveled everywhere by car. And this was the one time that we were able to get out of the car, and we fooled around, we took pictures and everything. Then Daddy said, okay, it's time to get back on the road. We got to start on our way to Los Angeles. And so we did, and then there was a big sign that said, Los Angeles, 1001 miles. And Daddy was like, okay. He got out of the car, because we took 2 cars down. So he came and he told Irma, he was like, did you see that sign? Did you see that sign? But that was the best trip ever. We spent 3 weeks, and Irma was there, and yeah, that was the best.
I want to say about this sign she mentioned, when we got to the sign that said we still had over 1,000 miles to go, their mother said, they need to take that sign down. We've been traveling all this time, and they still got over 1,000 miles to go. That's ridiculous. They need to take that sign down.
Okay, David, you got Irma Fraser's story. Or was that?
It's difficult for me to pinpoint one thing.
Yeah.
I have mentioned several things about my brother, and I just have endearing memories of him throughout my life. As I said, he was a great man. He loved his family. He loved all of his family. He loved his work. He loved what he did. He loved all of his patients. And he did everything with love, with joy, and with the Spirit of God. And I miss my brother a lot, and I'm sure that they do. And I just want to remember all of the fond memories that I have of him throughout my life. And I'm thankful to have had him as my brother.
David?
Well, you know, just same thing, you know, like family trips. And each family trip that we have, of course, there's a lot of memorable moments and times like that. And the boating experience. And I guess the other thing was Dr. Matthew Walker. He was the guy that recruited my dad from Minnesota to come back down to Meharry. But more importantly, the times that we spent with him, and I guess what's coming to mind right now, the very first time that I went fishing. And, you know, Dr. Walker took my dad and I fishing. And my mom, you know, of course, woke me up because we had to be up. I think we had to be at Dr. Walker's house at 4 o'clock.
No, we were leaving at 4 o'clock.
And then,
We were in the car leaving at 4 o'clock, yeah.
And so,
It's your early fish.
well, I just remember my mom waking me up and said, you know, it's time to go. And you know, I'm looking out the window. Mom, it's not time to go. It's still dark outside. It's not morning yet. But you know, you're not used to that. And then, and I guess, a depressing time for me when we moved back down to Nashville was my first Christmas, because you know, up in Minnesota, your Christmas are white. You have white Christmas.
Snow
Okay.
everywhere.
And then, but here, Christmas is like this.
Yeah, I miss it. I still miss it.
So that's, you know, I mean,
Still miss it.
you know, as a little kid, you know, you just don't think of, you know, things, but you know, we used to having snow on Christmas.
Well, can I, okay, go ahead.
I want to add one more thing. About a couple of months ago, I was talking with, I was saying hello to Dr. Richardson, the orthodontist, and he said, I don't know what started the conversation, but he said, did you know your daddy used to travel back and forth every day or every other day, going up to other states up north to get funding and to set the things in motion for Meharry and for Riverside. And I told him, no, that's impossible. Daddy was at home every night. I know he was. He said, no, he was traveling during the day to work on things for Meharry and for Riverside. And when we say things like that we didn't know, we didn't know. I know Daddy had wanted me to go to Tuskegee because I have not, to this day, have not been to my birthplace since I was 6 months old. And I made a mistake and said, oh yeah, I get to miss a test. So I didn't get a chance to go. But he has gone in different states and will be back at home. And back in that day, how he did it, the Lord only knows.
Family was priority for him. And that's why I got the great sense right at the beginning, what a strong family man he must have been. Let me take the opportunity to say that we're beyond grateful for what you did here for us today. Vicki, I've known you for years, and now I feel this intimate connection in a very different way because of this. And people will remember you, not just your dad. They will remember you and the great people that you are in carrying his legacy forth. I'm humbled. Benny, you want to say?
No, it's an amazing process.
Yeah,
But,
you brought me to tears.
I'd like to thank you on behalf of my family and everything,
You are
everybody for
welcome.
having us and doing this and remembering my dad. But like I said, you know, oftentimes things like this, y'all teach me a lot.
I learned too.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, I never knew Dr. Todd when he was alive. You know,
We only knew him
and,
as dad.
That's your blood.
Yeah, because I remember we would get in trouble, he would start it. But it didn't matter who comes out, see? But it didn't matter who started it, all three of us got it.
We got it all, that's right.
Same time.
But you know, what's crazy when y'all mentioned Riverside Hospital, I was sharing this with Irma yesterday. The furthest I've ever been to, you know, other than the lobby of Riverside, And then the time that he died, when Irma and I went back to visit with him for the last time, before, and then next time we saw him, of course, it was at his funeral home. But you know, I just never really, if you took me over to Riverside right now, I can tell you how to get to the operating room, offices, patient's rooms. I don't know, never been there before or anything like that, so.
So the beauty of all of this is that we're all learning.
Yeah,
Not just me as not a native here, but all of us are. And this is what we want people to learn
yeah,
through you all and your
So-
histories. And
so, but you
it's
know.
amazing.
Yeah, but I knew Riverside was there because, you know, Dad, Riverside's calling.
Well,
So I appreciate y'all.